But let me start, Dana, with yourself, if you don't mind. If you can, from your perspective, if looking at emerging technology, some of it you touched, from the lens of a designer and a director, and especially AR and VR, can you elaborate and maybe give us a bit of a perspective on how is that emerging or has been emerging over the last few years, and what do you see as the future?
Sure, yeah. So it's a fascinating thing because this technology is being developed at the same time as we're developing all of these different experiences. And so the two are really kind of going hand in hand and inform each other. There's always something that you're trying to test or push a boundary on when it comes to the tech. You always have to run stress tests to see how much it can handle. You have to test it with users to see how comfortable it is for them to perform certain actions. So you can design something on paper and then finally get it into engine. And once you get people involved in the test play of it, realize that you were completely off because whatever you designed on paper, the actual hardware has some limitations to it, or vice versa. And so there's a lot of this kind of R&D cycle that's continuously happening as you're designing and directing these experiences. And part of that is extremely exciting for me because I realize that we're constantly defining a new industry. We're going in and trying to push the boundaries so that we can understand what we're capable of doing and what type of experience we can actually give to an audience. And then those boundaries end up informing the new tech that we end up creating as a result from those tests. So it's all kind of a big cycle that feeds into each other. And it's a really exciting process to be a part of. Definitely part of that whole process is looking at traditional games, seeing what components of traditional games can help to inform the VR or the AR experience, but not letting that dictate the new experience. I often see people try to shove in some theory from traditional games into VR or AR platforms, and it doesn't work. People don't respond well to it, or sometimes it does, and very often it does, but there's times where it doesn't. For example, UI and UX kind of experiences, it's really hard to translate some of these theories from traditional games. Like, we have many years of documentation and examples of how it was implemented, psychology on how people respond to it, and we understand that workflow and understand the usability for traditional games. But in VR and AR, we're still defining it. We're still uncovering what it is that needs to occur moment by moment in order for somebody to really fully understand what you're trying to have them do, or an action that you want them to perform. So it's constantly evolving, which is really exciting. And it's a really interesting kind of opportunity to start integrating other parts of technology that, for example, like smart props potentially, or sensory effects on a stage. All of these different components can be added in, but it does take some time to do that initial testing and kind of make sure that it will work properly as well.
That's very interesting indeed. And just if I can build on one of the things you mentioned, which is about the fusion between trying to take old games and create the versions of those old games, or to fuse them with new ideas. What you seem to be suggesting is that when you try to take these old games and try to just emulate them in the digital space, it doesn't work so well. So you need to maybe reimagine or build games that are, maybe the essence are there, but they're built for this other platform, which we consider as digital. Is that what you were alluding to?
Yeah. Mm-hmm, exactly. And it might not be a one-for-one exactly transition of, we have this traditional game and we just want to port it over to VR, even though I have seen that happen. And you're like, this is really nauseating because none of it was built for VR. So I have seen people attempt to do that, which I would never recommend that. But it's more so also the principles of, oh, well, this has always worked forever in traditional format. Why are we questioning it in VR? And you're like, well, because this is a completely different way that we're asking people to interact with this character or this UI or to do this specific type of mechanic. And so it's not always going to translate one for one. And I think that that's like the interesting discovery of it, is understanding some of these principles, understanding them for what they are and where they were built, and then helping them to inform, but not to dictate what you're going to do as you move forward. So yeah, like I said, one-for-one translations never work. They just don't. So that kind of expectation, I think, is something that people have a hard time with when they first get into this field. They think it's going to translate exactly, and it just doesn't.